allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please. Thank you. This time we'll open the meeting up to citizens' comments. Any citizens wishing to speak? Any citizens wishing to speak? Any citizens wishing to speak? Seeing nobody, citizens' comments are closed. Announcements of the chair. I just want to take a quick minute and go over what I feel we've accomplished over the past 2 years. I had some personal goals, working on the communication and the relationships within the county board as well as with the city of Kenosha, and I think we achieved both of those. I wanted to look at small businesses, and I wanted to wrap up the lawsuit with the health department, and I think we came to positive conclusions with all that. And then when you look at us as a board, I think the two things that we hear when we go door to door, at least I did, were taxes and jobs. And I think over the past 2 years, the combined tax levy numbers are better than they've been in 25 years. So that speaks volumes to our fiscal responsibility and how we handled the budget. And then looking at jobs, over the last 2 years have been around 3,100 jobs created with $525 million in capital investment. And obviously we didn't do all that ourselves. CABA, the city, some other, the county executive cruiser, all played parts in that. But I think our high impact fund and the other incentives we offered were a huge piece of that. And we as a board are to be commended for that. When you look at our business operations, Brookside Care Center and the golf courses, 2 years in the black. So I think that's a positive thing for the board as well. When you look at our financial strength right now, it's the best we've been in a long time. Our general fund balance is over 17%, which hasn't been the case since 2006. So, I think we're in a better position now than we were when we started. And I just want to take a second and thank all of you for working with me and working with each other to get where we've come. I want to thank County Executive Cruiser and the administration, the staff, and our employees. I think together it's been a good team, and we've really worked well together. And I look forward to keeping an eye on the big picture and working together for our constituents and the residents of Kenosha County. So again, thank you for the last 2 years, and it's been a pleasure. At this time, I'd like to take a moment to thank those who are going to be leaving us. I don't know if I need it, but we'll put it on. So when I call you, if you just come up and get a plaque, I'd appreciate it. Supervisor Nudo, I want to thank you for your 2 years of service after the break. Your work on the Brookside Board of Trustees and with NACO have been an asset. So I just want to thank you for your service. Thank you. Supervisor Montemiro will get hers. Supervisor Underhill. I want to thank you for your 4 years of service, and every time I looked up, you were doing something out in your community, and I know they were grateful for that. So, and thank you for working for the employees of the county. You really were a help and an asset to us, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Supervisor Molinaro. Thank you for your 20 years of service, and I don't even know where to start. Your dedication and hard work for the county over the past 20 years has been greatly appreciated. You've done a lot of good work, and I thank you for that. So, thank you.
I didn't do it. Come on, really? She said it.
Thank you all again, and now we'll move on with our business. We good? Supervisor reports. Supervisor Rose.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this is a good time to report on the Finance Committee. Last Thursday was the last meeting of this two-year term. 2 years ago, you as chairman appointed the Finance Committee, a group from different walks of life as well as different political viewpoints. Myself, Supervisors Frederick, O'Day, Grady, Kohlmeyer, Kubicki, and Molinaro. You appointed us during a period of time which was the worst economic recession since the Great Depression of the 1930s. We were faced with the difficult task of weighing and balancing the various needs of the community and the government services that are provided, as well as the economic realities of the time. The committee could have chose to wring its hands or point the finger or shake its finger at Washington or Madison or the president or the governor or one party or the other, but we chose not to do any of those things. The committee got down to work, recognized what was best for the community, and with the assistance and leadership of the county executive, as well as the able team of Dave Gersten and Al Schwartz, presented two budgets to this county board for endorsement. One, our first budget, 2013, we had a zero levy increase, zero. In 2014 budget, the levy increase was 1.8%. Those are the kind of numbers that I think we can certainly be proud of, because we can match those up to any community in this country, and I doubt very seriously that any of them would be ahead of us. But in addition, and I think we can point with pride to the fact that even though it was 0% in 2013 and 1.8% in 2014, Brookside thrives like it has never done before. The golf course is in the green, not the red. The roads have been paved, the snow has been plowed, the buildings have been maintained. The employees have not been laid off. So the services that we have had traditionally have been continued. And when you look to the general fund policy, we've always said that we should maintain at least 17% of the, as a policy, 17% of the operating expenses in reserve. In 2014, that is almost 20%, 19.73%. An outstanding accomplishment in the face of the current economic situation. I want to thank the committee for working together, for making my job easier, And I mentioned all of your names and placed them on the record in recognition of the work that you as individuals have done and your ability to set aside whatever your personal philosophies may have been to work for the betterment of the community. So I would conclude merely with this final remark to you: a job well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Rose. Supervisor Hallman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to give my long-awaited and long-overdue report on the NACO conference that happened in early March. I attended the National Association of Counties annual legislative conference in Washington, D.C. Over the number of days I was there, the first one was spent at the Chief Information Officer Forum, which is basically a meeting of all the various IT heads in county government, and they meet with folks from the private sector as well. Those conversations centered around cloud computing. So, for example, when you write a letter and you have it as an attachment in your email, it essentially is parked in your email. That's an example of cloud computing. You can go somewhere else and essentially retrieve it. A lot of the conversation was around shared resources. So there are counties in this nation that, in terms of advancing their IT infrastructure, have partnered with neighboring counties and aligned things in their budget so that when they go out to market for a project, they get it at a cheaper cost. And there were counties that said that by doing that, that they'd seen 15–20% reductions in costs versus if they were to go at it alone. From what I understand, we're doing something similar in terms of purchasing voting equipment with our county clerk's office, and it's taken us a while to work with some of the other counties in Wisconsin to purchase in that fashion. That's something that definitely we should look at. There's a lot of conversation around various entities in county government moving more towards being paperless and about how to do that. The resources are there in the private sector, but in terms of making them financially feasible for us to do that, partnering would be a really, really good idea. We're about to make some changes to our tax system. We have a unique taxing structure in the state of Wisconsin. It might be a wise idea for us to try to partner with some other counties and see what we can do about that. The outgrowth of that conversation came to something called COIN, County Innovation Network. So there are some counties that are more advanced in IT than others who basically said, look, we've got the resources in terms of personnel, we've worked out some of the kinks, we know how to do some of these things. We want to be a resource for other counties that wish to advance their IT infrastructure in the way that they do business. And so all of us actually have the opportunity to sign up on quote-unquote COIN, County Innovation Network, through NACO, to see and be a part of the conversation with what other counties are doing. The second day after that was split between the Transportation Subcommittee hearings and the Technology Summit. The Technology Summit is designed more for electeds, more for us. And there was a really interesting presentation given by the head of Human Services from Montgomery County, Maryland, who's a rather affluent county, and she talked about the difference between return on investment versus social return on investment. We're very accustomed to ROI. Seeing what that looks like for our books, are we getting the most for our dollar, et cetera. But in terms of that social dimension, what does that look like? And using data and analytics in the technological realm to basically quantify it, to put a number on that and see what that looks like. That might be something we want to engage her in conversation about as we move ahead. That's a dimension that has been growing, particularly across the Atlantic in other nations as they look to try to more effectively serve their constituents. So there's some merit to doing that, and they just happen to be, I think, more on the forefront of it. The afternoon there was spent in the Transportation Subcommittee hearings. There's a subcommittee on railroads. The conversation on that focused on the horns for trains. Apparently, in our own backyard in northern Illinois into Kenosha, because we have so many crossings very close to one another, essentially the train would just blast the horn all the way, which is not necessarily friendly to the folks who live in those areas. And so it was basically a resolution was passed to say to the railroad companies, you know, spend the money to get the technology that's available out there so that the amount of time that they have to blast the horn before coming to a crossing is lessened, so that there's a little bit more silence between one crossing to the next. I learned something interesting in the Ports Subcommittee that I did not know, and for those of you that are residents of the city of Kenosha, you'll find this interesting. Harbor dredging has been an act that has occurred largely due to congressional earmarks. Earmarks are completely different than appropriations. There's a very distinctive legal differential between them. As you all probably are aware, Congress has decided that there's a quote-unquote ban on earmarks. Well, with the ban on earmarks, that means that the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, who typically takes on these projects for harbor dredging, is left to whatever they feel, according to their assessment, is a priority, rather than a member of Congress or a member of the U.S. Senate saying, this is a priority in my state, this is a priority in my district, we're going to put this money here to fix this and attach it to essentially a bill that is not related to that to help make that happen. That's a sweetener, way of buying votes, an earmark versus an appropriation. Because that's not happening, harbor dredging has not been occurring in a number of communities across the United States. I say that because there were folks this past summer that were disappointed that we were not able to host the tall ships because we couldn't get our harbor dredged. They weren't able to come in. It was too shallow. So from what I understand, Congressman Petri has had some open conversations about trying to get that moving. It's an issue in other areas of the state of Wisconsin as well. The Airport Subcommittee, there was talk about the FAA reauthorization. The Highway Subcommittee, there's reauthorization of MAP 21, which is the big transportation legislation. It's up for renewal actually now. So many of the subcommittees spent their time in their respective areas assessing what their needs were in terms of MAP 21 reauthorization. Having said that, the full subcommittee, or rather full steering committee of transportation met the following day on Sunday. We heard from the acting Deputy Secretary Victor Mendez, which was interesting because after he spoke, he left the room, came in and sat in the back. While we listened to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the U.S. Civil Corps of Engineers, some transportation, the American Public Transportation Association and Transportation for America, a couple of different groups. What's interesting about that is to have someone at the cabinet level come and sit in who wants to listen. You would think they'd be included in the conversation. My feeling is that from his remarks and certainly his actions coming and sitting and listening in is that largely the executive branch with regard to transportation is being left in the dark by Congress, which made congressional visits very interesting. I will say, you know, all of those entities, the American Society of Civil Engineers, who issued a great report on bridges, roads, airports, et cetera, everything that you can think of, and if you'd like, I can give you the link to that. There's even a really neat app that they've designed that you can download to your tablet or your phone that essentially grades the nation's infrastructure. It's quite eye-opening. But all of those entities are in favor of an increase in the gas tax, which used to be coupled to inflation. It was done away with a while ago, and so over time, something like 20 to 30% of the purchasing power has been reduced. That's important because that's money that goes to states and localities, not just for building roads, but also for supporting your mass transportation systems. In our case, that would be our West End Transit. Part of that is state-funded, part of that is federally funded. So that's very, very important in terms of what that's going to look like going forward. There's some major conversations happening around transportation funding, both at the federal and at the state level. Essentially, that was the nature of those conversations. The rest of the time was filled with congressional visits. I did speak on our priorities, our Kenosha County priorities. What I found quite fascinating is when you would talk to the House side around transportation, they would say to you, yeah, we realize the Highway Trust Fund is going to be broke in summer, solvent, empty, nothing's in there. Well, we'll probably pass a continuing resolution for spending through the end of the year just so that there's something. Probably, yeah, but they're not certain. There's some suspicion that after the next election cycle, they'll come back around and pass a more comprehensive package to address not just the funding, but also the policy priorities. But no one is 100% certain if that's going to happen or even when. Same thing on the Senate side. So that was interesting and disturbing. NACO has been put in the interesting position by the current chair of the House Transportation Committee of being asked to provide language for the congressional bill for the reauthorization of MAP 21. NACO has reached out to counties to say, what federal dollars do you receive for transportation? How much is it? What happens if those go away? Do you have other ways of funding these projects? What are some of the things that you'd like to do in the future as they go about structuring what it is the county association, the National Association of Counties priorities are coming out of MAP 21. That's unique. They didn't ask the lobbyists, they came and asked us. So certainly if there's things in your respective districts that you're aware of or things that you want to ask questions about, feel free to contact me. That pretty much concludes my remarks for the trip. I have a couple of personal notes. Just one to the supervisor of the 15th who's given us 2 decades of service, who's leaving. He's one of the gentlemen who quite actively has pushed me to be brighter, and I'm going to miss that push to be more intelligent from him. That's something I've grown to cherish. To you, Mr. Chairman, thank you. This was unexpected. I don't think most people know this, but you have a 21st century leading style, which is to say you bring people together in a room and say, what are your thoughts, what are your ideas, and actually listen and leave it up to them to help plot out a course, and if they need your assistance, you're there. It's like the conductor of the Metropolitan Opera said, James Levine. He says, you know, I don't need to be on the box doing everything. Sometimes I have to get out the way and let the musicians do what they naturally know how to do and step in and support them when necessary. And you know how to do that, and that's leading in the 21st century. So thank you for setting the example for doing that. And making me chair of the Human Services Committee. That was not something that I had anticipated. And I know folks in this room had reservations about that, and you stuck with me through it, and I appreciate that. Thank you to the committee members, Supervisors Frederick, Johnson, Montemurro, Decker, Arrington, and Nudo. You made this a fun and exciting experience. So, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Hallman. Supervisor Brunig.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to start out by thanking my committee, Supervisors Decker, Dodge, Skalitsky, and Supervisor Underhill. I'm sure that when they first walked into Planning and Development and they received a 4-inch binder called Chapter 12, they were probably scared and didn't know what to do with it. But I can tell you that over the last 2 years, they have grown to have a passion for land development, and it was really nice to see. Some of the things that we've accomplished in the last 2 years, other than our department being decimated down to nothing, we have done 23 comprehensive plan amendment applications, 39 rezoning applications, 34 conditional use permits, 16 certified survey maps, and 1 subdivision plat application. Moving into extension education, we have a new youth development educator who starts today. This is Carmela Davila. He came from Fond du Lac County, and he is replacing John de Montmullen. However, his oversight is going to be a little bit different. He is going to be have program direction for all of the youth development programs and be in charge and oversee all of the youth educators. Our Youth in Governance has created a program that is just amazing. We have now had 107 members since the start of the program 7 years ago. Thank you to Supervisor Molinaro, who brought the program forth to us. The new members will be appointed at the May 20th board meeting, and there will be a reception in the outer lobby prior to the meeting that night. Our 4-H program has grown tremendously. Bethany Sorcy will continue to provide direct educational support for them. They have over 100 volunteers for their parents. The program is just amazing. We also have, in our horticulture, we have 3 new master gardeners, which raises the total to about 200 between Kenosha and Racine counties. Through our nutrition education, we've partnered with the Boys and Girls Club of Kenosha, the RKCAA Kenosha Community Action Agency with WIC, Kenosha Job Center, Unified School District, the Head Start Program, Shalom Center, Sharing Center, Spanish Center, and the Urban Outreach Center. Our Conrad, which is the Community Natural Resource and Economic Development Educator, this is Amy Greel. She works with community development, the local government resources and natural resources, including air quality, environmental education in Wisconsin, climate change, energy, hazardous waste, the Center for Land Use Education, and the river basins. Saturday, May 3rd, from 8 until 1 p.m., there is the 2014 Household Hazardous Waste Collection at the 45 and 50 site. We also have the Agriculture, Family Living, and Leadership Kenosha through our extension education. So it's been a busy 2 years, and again, thank you to my committee for enjoying it and having fun with it.
Thank you, Supervisor Brunig. Supervisor Molinaro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have a report, obviously, but I trust you'll indulge me after 20 years, a few comments before I depart. And you know how I can be, right? So I will provide a brief intermission halfway through the next 45 minutes.
I was going to say brief comments.
If
Are you kidding me?
if you need a snack, you may want to grab that now. Rather than wait till the end, I'll start. I want to thank my family, and a good number of them are here today. I think my wife and kids are probably here to make sure that I'm actually leaving as opposed to sticking around. And you know, over the time I've been here, I haven't really missed a whole lot in terms of what they've done, but I've been at many baseball games in 90-degree heat, dressed like I am today, or walking the golf course, watching my daughter in a suit and tie. And it seems the one thing I'm really poor at handicapping is the time our meetings are going to take, because whenever we were going somewhere, I'd say, we'll be done in 45 minutes. It would be 3 hours by the time we were out of here. So I certainly thank all of them for their support. Holidays will be a little bit easier for me around the family, because my brother, who is back here, will no longer say, you got the jailers again this year. I can now blame all of you when things don't go so well. And my dad won't ride me about why the senior passes are so much at the county golf courses any longer. That I can blame Overman for, no doubt. I want to take a few minutes to thank a couple of people here in Kenosha County also that have made this journey so rewarding and I think full of accomplishment, and I believe there has been many. You know, I can say it's been accomplished, and I feel comfortable talking about the questions I've had is, you know, what are you going to remember the most, or what do you feel the most proud about having accomplished? You know, at the end of the day, it obviously takes this full body and a majority of this full body to get anything done, but I'm comfortable when I talk about things like the High Impact Economic Development Fund. I feel good about the size of this county board and some of the efforts we made in downsizing this county board. I feel real good about how we reorganized this county board when I was chairman. Certainly, I'm comfortable talking all day long about the Youth and Governance Program, which is a model across this country, and I'll come back to talk about that briefly. But again, at the end of the day, there is very little that we can do in committee or that we can do here in the county board floor if you don't have a majority. And as I say, the reality is there's no solo performance in what we do here. You know, if it wasn't for former Chairman Bob Carbone, who took a risk on a 20-some-year-old kid when he appointed me back in 1992, I guess, or 94, whatever it was, I'm sure there was plenty of times over the years that Bob questioned whether or not he made the right decision. And I specifically remember the interview I had with him and some of the questions he asked me, and having served as long as I have now on the Finance Committee over the number of terms I've been here, it's amazing he appointed me at all, because I had no clue what he was talking about, what he was asking me half of the time in that interview, and I can remember it in the old courthouse like it was yesterday. We're fortunate here to have an incredible and talented group of employees. One in particular I want to single out is Mr. Gertzen, who's sitting in the back corner. You know, one thing about Dave is, I've said it repeatedly, if he tells me anything, I believe it. And you could bring up any issue with him, and he may not believe it's possible, and he'll tell you that it can't be done. He'll put it to you in the nicest way possible, and then ultimately he'll come back with you and give you all the reasons why there's another way to do it. And that essentially is how the High Impact Fund was born on a train to Chicago with myself and former Supervisor Clark. Dave was with us, the county executive was there. And we talked about how we were going to repurpose, or whether or not we could repurpose the $1 million that we had earmarked for Fiat when Chrysler pulled out of here. At the end of the day, I'm going to touch for a moment on what that fund has done. And I do recall, Dave, that the first thing you indicated was there was nothing we could do with that $1 million except to give it to Fiat in some form or another. Well, at the end of the day, what we did with that $1 million, what we did collectively here on this board floor with that $1 million, was created $128 million in capital investment in Kenosha County, with a start of $1 million in seed money. We created 1,100 jobs alone. Chairman, you referenced over 3,000, I believe. 1,100 alone with that initial $1 million that we generated in that high impact fund, with an annual salary for those 1,100 jobs of just shy of $50,000 a year. I think now we have probably put into it just shy of $2 million, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Gertson. That's a hell of a return on investment, as I heard Supervisor Hallman mention. It's all about the rate of return. High impact funding here, it's $2.5 million. And the cost per job to create that 1,100 was just over $2,000. I need to urge this board, now is not the time to take your foot off of the accelerator. If you can put another over the course of the next 3 years, whatever dollar amount you believe is important enough to put towards this effort, we need to do it. $128 million since 2011. Supervisor Rose alluded to the times in which we did it. When we needed that $128 million of capital investment, we needed those 1,100 jobs, and we needed to elevate that annual salary to the level that we did. Don't give up on that fund. It is so critically important to Kenosha County. I want to thank Teddy Winnett, who I wish she was here this evening, because there is, I think this probably was under Supervisor Rose's tenure back when he and I maybe didn't get along as well as we do now. And I was lamenting the fact that I was stuck on at that time, the UW Extension Committee, where nothing ever got done. And it was myself and a couple of other supervisors. I think Supervisor Johnson may have been on that committee with me at the time. Supervisor Bruning, I believe, was on that committee. And of course, Ron and I were probably pouting and crying because we were stuck there as punishment for not having towed the line somewhere along the road. And I threw out this crazy idea of engaging our county youth into the county board, not really having an idea where it would go or how it would be implemented. And Teddy Winnett and her staff, as they do with every idea you throw past them, took it and have run with it. Supervisor Bruning alluded to that program this evening. It is copied and mimicked across the country. If you don't think it's an important program, all you have to do is talk to these kids and these parents that have come through it. Again, I can't say enough to Teddy and her staff. We need to keep that program going as well, and I trust you will. I mentioned Supervisor Rose. You know, I think I've had the pleasure here of serving through 4 county executives, and some of you will say 4. There's only 3, right? But you can't forget the, if not terribly accomplished, certainly the reality is Supervisor Rose is a former county executive here in Kenosha County. But I want to talk about County Executive Cruiser for a moment. And, you know, he is clearly the right leader for the right time here in Kenosha County. And regardless of the circumstances that got him here, we could not be in better shape and have a better leader. And I can't say enough about my enjoyment of working with County Executive Cruiser over the last, whatever period of time he's been here, 8 years, 12 years? How long has he been here now? When I was chairman, I certainly enjoyed his cooperation. There is no one that I know of in this game that has the ability to broker a deal, and I mean that in the best sense of the word possible. He has such an ability to reach across differences between individuals, between factions, between one side of the aisle or the other, and get things done, fortunately for us, for the betterment of Kenosha County. I wish him all the best as he was sworn in today for yet another 4 years. Finally, or not finally, but a couple of, there's some guys here who've been here longer than I have. Supervisor Elverman, just a little bit shy of myself, but Supervisor Noble, certainly, Supervisor Ron Johnson, Supervisor Terry Rose, all former chairman of this county board, all individuals who were supportive of me and the efforts that we tried collectively in this board to bring forward over the years. I thank all of you. Supervisor Rose, in particular, I'll miss our debates, no doubt. I urge you to keep at it, practice in the courtroom, continue to work those skills here on the county board, and someday you just might be an architect if you wanted to be. I appreciate all the support I've had from Supervisor Rose over the years, and the Finance Committee this past 2 years was certainly a treat and very enjoyable all the way through. And then finally, I want to point just one thing out. After 20 years in the county board, if you don't keep this position in perspective, maybe this will for you. I'm sorry about my difficulty speaking here. Within about a day or two at the most of announcing I wasn't running back in October, I got this postcard in the mail. It says, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has." At the same time, within about an hour or two, there was a post on the Kenosha News Facebook page that said, "Don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out." So when it's all said and done, we are but a blip on the long line of history here in Kenosha County, and I'm just glad to have been a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Molinaro. That was much quicker than I thought. Supervisor Elverman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple brief items from facilities, parks, highways, and golf. Before I do that, I just want to make one short comment on Supervisor Molinaro's remarks. When I was county board chairman, I would sit there and think, I've got two of the brightest men I've ever met, and they argue all the time. Now, I've got Supervisor Molinaro and Supervisor Rose getting along famously, and he's leaving. It's been a real joy to serve with every supervisor I've served with here. Supervisor Molinaro has been one of the most thoughtful, whether you would agree with his opinions. His documentation and his oratory have always left me smiling, if not sometimes grumpy, but I've always appreciated the time that we've spent. From the golf courses now, I want to report that everyone knows that we're open. The article in the newspaper this week was, I'm sure, good news to most people, since I reported last year, some dire weather factors and things weren't quite as good, but as we've all seen, and it's unaudited, but we have not shown a loss for our 2013 season, and that gives us 2 years in a row of positives to build on. The 60th Street Tower, I'm sure you following that, as I've been reporting for the last couple of years. We've had a little setback on that. I was reporting that we'd be going by the end of March, I was as surprised as many of you were when I read an article in a newspaper that said now we're looking at May. Apparently, as our facilities people were working on this for the past 2 years, and we've been talking about it, some of our people that are taking space on the tower forgot. And where we are right now is actually waiting for people that should have been doing their permits, doing their homework, that began way too late. And we have a setback with some of our tenants, and I'm not going to name names, but the tenants are all people that we support with our tax dollars. The administration building, I'm sure when you drove up, you saw there's activity here. Been reporting on that. And that work has begun. And if weather prevails here, we'll be going on that all summer. So we'll all see that as we attend our meetings into fall. I did speak with our committee also, as everyone here has, on you know, what we've accomplished in the last couple of years. I think you accomplished it as a full county board because everything comes here. But I'm looking forward to a new session here in a new 2 years, and you know, new adventures and accomplishments. So thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Elverman. Supervisor Esposito.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to also thank the Judiciary and Law Committee that we've wrapped up our session these last 2 years. We've had some tough issues, and we faced them head on with resolve, and that I do appreciate the members, Supervisor Noble, Nita Johnson, Ron Johnson, Supervisor Montemaro, Supervisor Frederick. I also want to say in closing that I publicly want to thank Supervisor Molinaro. Everybody in this county board chambers knows that Kenosha County is a better place because he's been a county board supervisor. So I'd like to thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Esposito. Seeing no more lights, we'll carry on with our agenda.
New business resolution 115 from Finance Administration Committee regarding 2013 to 2014 carryover and annual closeout resolution. Rose, yes. Ron Frederick, yes. Kohlmeyer, yes. Molinaro, yes. Kubicki, yes. Grady, yes. O'Day, yes.
Supervisor Rose.
On behalf of the Finance Committee, I would move resolution number 115.
Supervisor Rose has moved resolution number 115, seconded by Supervisor Ron Frederick. Supervisor Rose.
This is a routine resolution that annually comes before the board and highlights certain monies that have not been spent but appropriated for various items in the prior year's budget. In other words, in this case, 2013. And we're asking you to approve of the items listed and to finish those various projects with the amounts set forth in the attached documents in 2014. Thus, it is called the 2013 to 2014 carryover and annual closeout resolution. If any of these items were stricken, or if the resolution did not pass in its entirety, the money that would be appropriated would revert to the general fund. The committee reviewed this, was unanimous in support of it, and ask you this evening to likewise support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Rose. We will do a roll call. We will need a 2/3 vote on this. Resolution 115 passes 22-0.
Resolution 116 from Judiciary and Law Committee regarding probationary cabaret license for Shadow Hill Ranch Country Thunder Music Festival. Esposito, yes. Ron Johnson, yes. Boyd Frederick, yes. Arrington excused. Anita Johnson, yes. Montemiro excused. Noble excused.
Supervisor Esposito.
Thank you. I move Resolution 116.
Resolution 116 has been moved by Supervisor Esposito, seconded by Supervisor Ron Johnson. Supervisor Esposito.
Thank you. This is the probationary cabaret license for Country Thunder at Shadow Hill Ranch. Obviously, this is earlier than normal by quite a bit, and I'd like to publicly thank Supervisor Bruning, the PDEC committee, and actually Captain Weicker from the Sheriff's Department getting on this. And we've always been at the the 12th hour on this thing, and so on and so forth. I urge your support. The activity control license obviously has to be approved, but it's nice to see that things are finally falling in line and we're not going through this tumultuous sludge to get these things taken care of for Country Thunder. So I urge your approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Esposito. Seeing no more lights, we just need a voice vote on this. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes.
Resolution 117 from Judiciary Law and Finance Administration Committee regarding request authorization to redirect bonded funds earmarked for a control room security software project and walk-through metal detector for the detention's portable radio system upgrade project. Judiciary and Law Committee, Esposito, yes. Ron Johnson, yes. Boyd Frederick, yes. Arrington excused. Anita Johnson, yes. Montemiro excused. Noble excused. Finance Administration, Rose, yes. Ron Frederick, yes. O'Day, yes. Grady, yes. Colmeyer, yes. Kubicki, yes. Molinaro, yes.
Supervisor Esposito.
Thank you. I move Resolution 117.
Resolution 117 has been moved by Supervisor Esposito, seconded by Supervisor Anita Johnson. Supervisor Esposito.
This resolution is, in a nutshell, redirecting some bonded funds for the detention center portable radio system for a man-down accommodation. So we're asking for some redirection of funds so the officers can have this capability and the software that goes with this in order for them to operate efficiently and operate both at the detention center and down here at the jail. It was approved by both committees. I urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Esposito. Seeing no lights, we will take a roll call on this. We do need 2/3 vote. Supervisor Anita Johnson. Resolution 117 passes 22-0.
Resolution 118 from Public Works Facility and Finance Administration Committee, a resolution authorizing the submission of a Wisconsin Department of Transportation Facilities for Economic Assistance T-Grant application. Public Works Facility Committee, Elverman, yes. Noble, yes. Dodge, yes. Nudo, yes. Skalitsky, yes. Finance, Rose, yes. Ron Frederick, yes. O'Day, yes. Grady, yes. Colmeyer, yes. Kubicki, yes. Molinaro, yes.
Supervisor Elverman.
Move Resolution 118.
Resolution 118 has been moved by Supervisor Elverman, seconded by Supervisor Skalitsky. Supervisor Elverman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Resolution 118 authorizes the Highway Commissioner and his staff to apply for a grant to facilitate some of the work that needs to be done for the Amazon Fulfillment Center. We have committed to county trunk road work be done to bring traffic in and out, whether it be truck, vehicle, any type of traffic that is going to use that facility. We have, or what this grant will do, again, will give the Highway Commissioner authority to apply and receive grant money. We're committed to 50% of the cost of that county trunk highway improvement, but our sources can be from grants, from our own funds. The developer is committed to the other percentage. So I would ask for your approval so that we can begin this process. The construction is underway. This road work naturally would not be undertaken immediately, but we want to get all our eggs in a basket here. Happy Easter.
Thank you, Supervisor Alverman. Seeing no more lights, all those in favor of Resolution 118? Aye. Any opposed? That resolution is passed.
Resolution 119 from Public Works Facilities Committee, a resolution authorizing the general manager, this is also from Finance, from Public Works Facility Committee and Finance Administration Committee, authorizing the general manager of park operations to apply for grant funding from the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, which will be used to make improvements in Katy Park. Public Works, Elverman, yes. Noble, yes. Dodge, yes. Nudo, yes. Skalitsky, yes. Finance Administration, Rose, yes. Ron Frederick, yes. O'Day, yes. Grady, yes. Kohlmeyer, yes. Kubicki, yes. Molinaro, yes.
Supervisor Alverman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd move Resolution 119.
Resolution 119 has been moved by Supervisor Alverman, seconded by Supervisor Nudo. Supervisor Alverman?
Thank you. The stewardship grant is something that you've all heard me report on. We've been very successful in our Parks Division in applying for these and receiving them. The stewardship grant has given us the ability to purchase the initial parkland now some, I think, 12, 13 years ago at Highway KD&F. It enabled us to purchase the adjacent park and building this past year, where our Parks Division now has moved into it as operating out of. What this would be a grant application for improvements. A couple of the improvements that we'd be looking at would be a long list that has been put together by our Green Ribbon Committee years ago, and now the Parks Committee. One is a parking lot that would include a diving ramp, boat launch for our first responders that do rescue to practice their diving skills and rescue skills. Parking lot for fishermen on the north end of the park. So what the grant would do would be, if successful, give us 50% of the money from the State Department of Natural Resources Stewardship Grant Program. So what we're asking for this evening is permission to apply for the grant. We also would bring this back to the county board for permission to accept the grant. So I would ask for your approval.
Thank you, Supervisor Alverman. Seeing no lights, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Resolution 119 is passed.
Resolution 120 from Public Works Facility and Finance Administration Committee, a resolution to authorize the installation of parking lot gates and entry system to be sole sourced. Public Works Facility, Elverman, yes. Noble, yes. Dodge, yes. Nudo, yes. Skalitsky, yes. Finance Administration, Rose, no. Frederick, yes. O'Day, yes. Grady, yes. Kohlmeyer, yes. Kubicki, yes. Molinaro, no.
Supervisor Alverman?
Move Resolution 120, Mr. Chairman.
Resolution 120 has been moved by Supervisor Alverman, seconded by Supervisor Noble. Supervisor Alverman?
Mr. Chairman and fellow supervisors, what this is the request to authorize a sole source purchase. If you read the resolution, we need to have permission here if we're doing a sole source purchase exceeding $25,000. This purchase is in the 2014 budget. So we're not asking for permission as far as installing gates on this parking lot. What we're asking for is to go sole source. The reason here with this provider is that they did our gates at our parking structure. The hardware, wiring, computer, software, everything would be the same. Very logical, and when we actually did go talk to other vendors, they said you should just go and talk to the people that did the parking structure, because they're the only ones that can really do this, to make these compatible. So it's again, a simple resolution asking to go sole source. So I ask for your approval.
Thank you, Supervisor Alverman. Supervisor Molinaro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I voted against this in committee. I'm going to urge you to vote against it tonight. And this simple resolution kept me up last night at midnight watching a heavyweight boxing bout on Showtime, which was a great fight. And the reason it was on my mind, and I mean that in all sincerity, I couldn't sleep thinking about this because its timeliness is so important. We are going to spend $60,000 total. We're asking to sole source just the gates, which I believe are $20,000. The total cost of this is $60,000. And we are spending it to solve a $100 problem that we created ourselves. And the $100 problem is we don't provide our employees with stickers to park in this lot any longer. And when I brought this question up at committee, the explanation was that it is the policing of this lot falls to certain individuals within the sheriff's department. It is part of, to quote the chief deputy, part of their responsibilities and their duties. Except they don't know who's in the lot because there's no way to identify the cars. So they have some of these individuals who use the train station or parking in this parking lot. I get all of that. But I've got a placard that I was handed, still says County Board District 6 on it, when I was first appointed to the board 20 years ago. We've got the same placard. So I don't know why we got away from issuing stickers. Again, the argument at the committee was that the expense of issuing stickers. Well, if you give an employee one sticker when they're hired, you take it back when they leave or let them leave with it. Either way. So rather than provide stickers as we did before, and it was our decision collectively, I guess, at the county to stop providing stickers, now we have to move the entrance, redo the access point, redo the street, the curb, whatever the case might be, relocate that, put in these gates so we can control the access so that the very individuals who are supposed to police the lot don't have to police the lot, I guess. Thursday night, and we had a couple on the agenda tonight, we're all about reallocating, repurposing, redefining dollars that we had bonded for projects or spent on projects. It was a whole bunch of except one thing, refunding dollars to the taxpayers. Right? How about we refund once in a while? Every single resolution that came before us on Thursday night was money that's left over. Well, you know what? I said this when we created and worked through that 17% general fund policy. At some point in time, if your savings account is growing too high, there's only one place we got it, and that was the taxpayer. Give some of it back. Give them a break. If we bonded for it, didn't spend it, why do we always have to create another project? Reissue the darn stickers. Don't spend $60,000. I wasn't aware, shame on me, that this was in the 2014 budget. And again, you know, we all know it's the budget book is 4 inches thick. We can't possibly understand everything that's in there. It's not an excuse, it's the reality. But at the end of the day, and here's why it's so timely for me, because I read every one of the ads and the flyers and the pitches for re-election. Everybody here claimed fiscal conservancy, touted the zero budget that the county executive put in our lap, talked about accomplishments for cutting OPEB and everything else that took place before you were even elected to the county board. Now here's the one issue where you can say, it isn't just at election time, it isn't just at budget time. We're going to pay attention every single issue that comes forward. $60,000 is a lot of money, and I suspect if we took up a collection in this room tonight from everybody here, we still wouldn't meet the 60 grand, so it is a lot of money. Take the position tonight, and I look at the names of who signed on to it, right, that we're gonna go back to the sticker approach. We're gonna issue a sticker to a new hire, and that's all we've gotta do, problem solved. And the very individuals that currently are employed by the Sheriff's Department will continue to be employed by the Sheriff's Department, will continue to do the jobs they do. We're not changing anything, except spending $60,000 so that we can take something off of their plate. It doesn't make any sense to me. Give them a break. Refund, don't reallocate. Vote no, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Molinaro. Supervisor Rose?
I urge your opposition to resolution number 120 this evening. I also voted against it at the Finance Committee and dissent here this evening as well. The simple, low-tech, inexpensive solution is to issue the stickers. We don't need then to worry about software upgrades or maintenance of a gate system which is attached to some other system. The problem is just too simple to solve by the issuance of stickers which work. So I urge your opposition to this.
Thank you, Supervisor Rose. Supervisor Grady?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a point of clarification. In committee, I had heard some talk to the effect that it would be KPD, Kenosha Police Department, that actually monitor this lot. It's under our jurisprudence, we own it. Do we have a definitive answer as to who would actually do the enforcement in this area?
Yes, by the fact that the Chief Deputy's shaking his head, I would think it's us.
It is us. Chuck says yes, I'm taking that to the bank, I believe it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Grady. Supervisor Hallman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Point of information, and I don't know who best to direct this to, but I'd wonder what the cost is in staff time for enforcing the lot.
Yeah, I can't answer that. Do you, staff time for enforcing that? I mean,
Mr. Chairman, the conveyance unit of the Sheriff's Department, which is in between the courthouse and the pretrial building, part of their duties is civic center enforcement, the courthouse complex area, and we enforce parking in all the parking lots. That includes the 30-minute parking from the safety building and the designated lots by county ordinance. And when those deputies are not conveying inmates to court or providing court security or taking transports, part of their duty is to enforce the parking in the lots. It's just part of their normal 8-hour shift of duties, whether it be on first shift or second shift. There's no way to really break that down. And the issue is that there's no enforcement because they don't know who's illegally parking and who isn't. When the ramps were installed in the ramp, the gates were installed in their parking ramp, before that happened, general public was using it, and the train station people were using it, and county employees were using it. Well, the issuance of the ramps forced the issue of the train people and public out of there. So they picked up on the north parking lot, which is just north of the public safety building. That particular parking lot is designed for public safety building employees, Kenosha Police Department, Kenosha Sheriff's Department, Kenosha Joint Services. That's where they park. Unfortunately, a lot of the train people come in before the shifts change. They get into that lot, and that forces those employees then to park along the streets, which then forces the Kenosha Police Department to enforce the parking along the streets, and they start issuing citations for that. So it just, it's like a domino effect, and the county quit issuing stickers, which went in the back window of the car several years ago. So nobody that I know of currently that's an employee has a sticker. And because those stickers aren't issued, there was no way to enforce the parking. The issue came up because the employees of the safety building complained the fact there was cars in there and they couldn't get a spot to park anymore. So we had talked to the county executive, first of all, personnel office, because Mr. Riedel's office is in charge of issuing those stickers. And that wasn't going to happen, so we talked to the exec's office. We ran over several ideas of what we could do. And the other one, it was suggested that maybe we should gate it. That way it's restricted, just like the ramp is. You put the card in, that's it. Either way, whatever is done with it, you know, the sheriff's department will deal with it. I mean, that's what, and I agree with Supervisor Molinaro, that's what we do. We enforce the parking. And, but we just don't have any mechanism to do that now unless there's some kind of resolve to the issue. But the actual time spent is whatever time's available. Supervisor, we can't, there's no way of really gauging that because it depends on when they're free and they can get into there, so.
Thank you. You still have the floor.
Actually, if I could, to the Chief Deputy through the chair, since he's here. Correct me or not on this, I thought that we had members of the public essentially renting some of those spaces by like, you know, a month or a couple of weeks or something like that.
Remember people from the train station, there were some spaces reserved in the ramp area on the ground floor, but some of that is rented to train people, some of that is rented to county employees. And I think it's $50 a month. They can pay for a parking permit, which gives them 24-hour-a-day access. Once in a while, somebody sneaks in there that isn't them, and at least we know that's in violation. But yeah, they do. There's about 10 spaces that are reserved.
So that would become part of the quote-unquote sticker program as well, I would presume? Theoretically, if we were to go that route.
They have permits. They don't need stickers.
Okay.
But anybody else in that lot, the ramp doesn't need stickers either because now they can access by this card. It would just be the outer lots.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Hallman. Supervisor Skalitsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I sit on the Public Works Committee, and initially, I'd asked the question of Chairman Elverman whether or not this was budgeted money, and indeed it was. $60,000 is a tremendous amount of money, especially just to control entry and exit out of a parking lot. I want to commend Supervisors Molinaro and Rose for bringing this up, and I'm a little bit ashamed of myself for not thinking about, gee, everywhere I've worked, we use hang tags or use a sticker, and if you're somewhere where you don't, you get cited. But I don't remember, and Molinaro, Supervisor Molinaro had mentioned, he didn't see it in the budget, and you're right, it's a 4-inch binder, how are you going to catch everything? But I don't remember them bringing this up as a line item that should be cut from the budget. So it's unfortunate. But here we sit now with a $60,000 line item that we're really potentially going to move forward on. And I had originally supported this resolution because I'd originally thought it was a done deal. But indeed, it's not. There is a much less and, quite frankly, more effective alternative solution. Go back to either hang tags or stickers. As we just heard from Deputy Sheriff, that there's patrols regularly, and start issuing citations. I can assure you people that park in that lot and get a $25 or $30 or $35 ticket or whatever the number is, won't do it many times before they'll find alternative solutions to their parking dilemma. That'll free it up for the county employees or the city employees or whoever is all parking there that is authorized to do so. We'll have saved $60,000. We won't have another mechanism that's going to require long-term maintenance and upkeep, and we all know how IT issues come along with these types of things. Something will go wrong, and it'll be a crisis, and it'll be very, very effective. And to Supervisor Molinaro's point, let's return that to the taxpayer. Let's not repurpose it. Let's refund it. I would love to see some money given back to the taxpayers. This is still not robust economic times. And so, even though I supported this resolution in committee, I won't be supporting it tonight on the board floor. And I want to thank those supervisors from the Finance Committee for recognizing a much simpler, less costly, and probably more effective solution. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Skalitsky. Supervisor Noble.
I also want to say that I supported it in committee. I asked a lot of questions about it. It just didn't feel right, but I didn't ask the question of what did we do before. I didn't realize that we used a sticker system at one time, and I didn't think of it in committee. I agree. It's just a more cost-effective option, and I'm going to vote no tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Noble. At this, I have a question. At this point, Supervisor Elverman, was the sticker idea brought up at your committee or talked about at all? Okay. Chuck, if you could come to the mic, I have a question for you as well. When this was talked about and brought forward before it was brought to the committees, was the sticker idea brought up?
We had discussed the options of how to effectively keep the lots free from other cars. That was the first, because we knew, I was not even aware that stickers weren't being issued anymore. But they said, at least not currently. I knew maybe something was going on, but this for years now. So I was kind of taken back a little bit, but that was really the only thing that we had talked about originally, was just putting the stickers back in the car so we have some kind of option for enforcement. It was kicked around. We came back and said, well, there's several options. One, you don't do anything, just let it go like it is. Two, we put the stickers back on the car. But good, bad, or indifferent, you know, sticker time is you got to issue one to every county employee now that you have, because it affects all the lots. And I don't know what the cost on that is, but that's through the personnel office. Or we gate it. And that was an idea. Said if we gate it, it's like the ramp. That way they're uniform, and that reduces the amount of enforcement time that sheriff's deputies have to spend looking at the lot. We don't get called to the ramp now like we did before because it is gated. So the time that we spend enforcing the lot parking is not on a regular basis. It's because it's only available when manpower is available and they're not doing other things. We don't want to call squads in other districts to come downtown. That's part of the conveyance unit. So is it a real problem? Well, it can be for employees if they want to find a spot. But it was brought up. That was part of the things that was discussed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
While I'm talking, I have the floor before all these other lights go off. Maybe someone might want to send it back to the two committees rather than voting it down so that we can maybe look at a sticker program, because I'm not in favor of leaving it the way it is. So that's my 2 cents. Supervisor Noble.
No, I'm done.
Supervisor Decker.
I just wanted to state, obviously, I don't know which way this vote is going to go tonight, but if it does fail, I would advise the next session of supervisors to stay on top of this issue and make sure that the personnel department does issue stickers, and also that we amend the budget to remove the funding for this from the budget, and then also if like Supervisor Molinaro said, we want to give it back to the taxpayer, make sure we get a resolution doing that too. So I would, whatever respective committee, I'm guessing that would be either the finance and administration or the facilities, public works. I just advise to keep on top of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Decker. Supervisor Underhill.
How are these stickers put on the cars? Does anybody have any idea?
Back window. They're put on the back window.
Do they stay there permanently? Wouldn't it be a safety issue as far as targeting officers or other personnel as a safety thing?
I don't understand the question. What do you mean a safety issue? What do you?
Well, they see their police officer, deputy sheriffs, now they could be a target.
No, I think it's a sticker to allow you to park in that lot. I don't think it's going to say just the sheriff's deputies or just the police officers can park there, because it's from the joints from that whole building, correct?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Underhill. Supervisor Ron Frederick.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I would like to see this referred back to the Facilities Committee, Public Works Committee, and have them come back with a recommendation, because I think it's important that the sign that's up there now, and I don't know what it is because I haven't looked at it, should have identify that if you park here, you're going to be fined X amount of dollars or something like that, so that they know that there's a penalty in place if they park there without a sticker. So I'd like to refer this back to the Public Works Committee for their further review.
Second. Would you like to include finance in that, since they looked at it as well?
I'm sure if they want, I don't know if finance would be involved if there's no expenditure, so I suppose it could go back to both committees, right?
Yes. We should
Okay.
probably go back to both committees, because that's who
Okay,
brought it to us.
then I have no, if the second doesn't object,
It's been moved by Supervisor Ron Frederick, seconded by Supervisor Noble, to send this back to the two committees to look at some other options. All those in favor of sending it back? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that will be sent back to the two committees to have it looked at again and brought back to the next county board meeting after they meet.
Claims. 40, Susan Carroll. Oh, I'm sorry.
There was no one interested in debating that? Is that why we went to a vote so quickly?
Actually, I didn't see any more lights on.
I see, okay.
Yeah, I didn't see any more lights on. It was just a continuation of who had spoken.
All right.
If you want to talk about it.
No,
you should.
I wasn't suggesting I wanted to talk, and I was just surprised that nobody sought the floor. But if nobody has, certainly is okay.
Thank you, Supervisor Rose.
Claims. 40, Susan Carroll, tire damage.
Refer to the Corporation Council.
41, State Farm from Wallwood Mazda, vehicle damage.
Refer to the Corporation Council.
42, Langquist of Wisconsin Incorporated, property damage.
Refer to the Corporation Council.
Approval of the minutes from the April 2nd, 2014 meeting by Supervisor Hallman.
Supervisor Hallman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Motion to approve the minutes of April 2nd, 2014 of the Kenosha County Board of Supervisors.
Second.
It's been moved by Supervisor Hallman, seconded by Supervisor Underhill, to approve the minutes of the April 2nd, 2014 meeting. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Those minutes are approved. Pardon me? It's been moved by Supervisor Molinaro, seconded by Supervisor Underhill to adjourn Sindai. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned Sindai. We will take a 5-minute recess while things are reprogrammed.